Hi everyone and welcome to my Hydra Sorc guide for Season 10. This is a build I've already enjoyed a lot in Season 9 and I've updated my build guide for you guys to enjoy in Season 10. This is an absolute powerhouse of especially a speed farming build. You can see here you can fly through pits in 1 minute or less once you have this optimized. And in Season 10 with the Chaos Armor and the Chaos Perks, this is getting even better. Because not only do you not really need a very high-end setup now to make a one-cast teleport cycle possible, thanks to Flicker Step Chaos Armors, but you also get pretty powerful buffs from the Chaos Armors themselves. So you can go even higher than what we see here. This is just like some random Season 9 footage now, but I expect we're gonna probably be farming 90s at that pace once we are fully optimized in the Season 10. So it's going to be pretty wild, and this is just going to fly. It's super fun, fast-paced, and pretty chill, pretty easy to actually control. So you can just play this from the start. It's also a decent leveler, and then progress nicely into the end game and destroy everything. So for those that have missed this build in Season 9 and want to try it in Season 10, fear not, this is incredible in Season 10. And for example, there were like a few nerfs to the Serpentine aspect, but funny enough, we don't even run it this season anyway. So this nerf was not really a big deal. So overall, this is going to be insane. And that's really all I can say about it. So here's my planner. I have two separate versions. There's the Ancestral and the Mythic variant, where Ancestral is just kind of like, you know, once you're in endgame and you have a few of the kind of like core uniques. The main one being Ophidian Iris. So this is kind of like the one item you're really heading for. And there's a few others that also help this build out a bit for extra damage here and otherwise defensive slots. And then we have the Mythic variant, where when you have the best in slot gear, this is what you're aiming for. I also want to highlight that there is a macro guide here by Northlar. It looks pretty similar I just checked it out real quick, but there are some differences here with a few tweaks, but overall it seems like this is kind of the same stuff. So you can also go check that out if you want to see his version, plus the full written guide there. So what are some of the interesting novelties here for Season 10 with Hydra? Well, Mana Shield. This is kind of the name of the game for Sorcs. So this makes it so that you have basically no life at all. So that is not really any news as a ARPG grinder, I guess. But we have 81 life in the setup because this reduces our maximum by 99%. But it gives you Mana Shield. So now you have 400% increased maximum mana and +1 for every point of int. So you have something like in the range of 10 to 15k mana, which is now your life pool effectively. And when you don't get hit for 2 seconds, which is outdated here on the tooltip right now, then you get plus 5000% mana regeneration. And oh boy, do we have a lot of mana regen. So 11,000 per second. So if you don't get hit, it basically fills up pretty much instantly. We can also just generate a little bit even under fire, thanks to just having really high mana regeneration with the Primordial Binding passive here. We have 16 ranks ideally on this thing, giving you a ton of mana regen. You can roll this here and you still generate even while you take damage. But most of the time you'll try to just take damage sporadically. So you can use, for example, Flame Shield to just be immune. So we have that on our bar here and you get an immunity for 2 seconds. So there will be like a little bit of like a leftover time when Flame Shield is active and you already have this big mana regen kicking in, basically making sure that you can't just die when you run out of mana. So always keep your Flame Shield up for that. And we have a very low cooldown. You see here in the late game setup, we actually reach 75% overall cooldown reduction thanks to especially the Shaco, but we also have the Tarasha Ring. We have the Evocation passive down here, and that is the cap. So Flame Shield is a 5 seconds cooldown eventually, so you basically can't really die. What else is new? Well, thanks to Mana Shield, we cannot run Serpentine aspect. The freshly nerfed aspect is just kicked out. So usually this is a very powerful aspect, and regularly without this Mana Shield power, we would still run this despite the nerf because it's still very good. But it says it consumes all of your mana. So that's kind of a bad thing to do when you have only mana to protect you. Otherwise, you would have to basically cast a Hydra only when your Flame Shield is running in order to make sure that you don't just get randomly one-tapped after consuming all of it. So we just leave it out. And we still have enough power anyway. So there's not that many offensive aspects. We just put some good ones here. And we also have the advantage we can now run with a staff because it's pretty easy to get your teleport cooldown low enough to do like a one cast cycle where you do like one cast, reset your evade cooldown by 1.5 seconds, and then just teleport, because you see here, for example, my teleport enchantment has a 1.2 seconds cooldown in the late game with the Shaco equipped. And here in the Ancestor version, we have a 3.7 seconds. You just try to get this below around 4.5 seconds or something like that, because we can get double evade cooldown with the Chaos Armors. So in the early game, once you approach into like Torments, you just try to get any Flicker Step Chaos Armor, you put it on no matter in which slot, and you're gonna have this 2.5 seconds of your evade cooldown, plus the boots, and a little bit of an evade cooldown temper there. And with those 4 seconds off, you can very easily achieve this perma teleport already. And later on, we just kick that out again because we want to have more damage and we have the cooldown that we need anyway. So it's kind of like the core combo. You just spam Ball Lightning, cast Hydras whenever you see enemies, and repeat. And every few seconds, you want to press your Frostbolt. We want to have Frostbolt in particular, thanks to Permafrost passive here. So we need to have a Frost skill on our bar. Ice Armor doesn't work because it protects us based on our life pool, which is very small. So we just don't run that. And we also want to have a basic skill for explosive combinations. So we have a stacking damage buff here that is also an outdated tooltip, but it is now a 5-second timer. So you can just cast your Frostbolt once every 5 seconds. Otherwise, you're just gonna hold down Ball Lightning. This has an extremely fast attack rate, much faster than basically any other skill out there, and has the advantage that you can combine this with Unstable Currents. So you constantly trigger all these shock skills. They don't really do much damage, but they do have a bit of like special perks. For example, Lightning Spear can make everything vulnerable for you automatically, so we don't have to worry about that. And you can get lots of crackles here. And with the crackles, we also get the extra damage from convulsions. We get extra attack speed from the Ball Lightning. We get a bit of extra damage reduction. And yeah, this kind of stuff here with Unstable Currents. So this is very comfy. The alternative is to run Inferno, which is probably a bit more of like a raw power angle here because of the Supreme Inferno giving you just straight up 50% multiplier for your Pyromancy skills. So you probably end up with a slightly more damage if you run this. And this is also an alternative you can do. But personally, I'm a big enjoyer of the Unstable Currents and the faster attack speed to just fly through the maps even quicker because you can cast the Ball Lightnings even faster. And maybe for like the higher tier pits, for example, you'd go Inferno. And the good thing is, thanks to the mana shield, you will not have to worry about mana cost at all for anything. Like even your Ball Lightning, you know, even if it costs like 50 and every cast, and you cast it like 5 times per second, you don't really care. You have so much mana regeneration that you just out-regen that easily. Not only that, but we're also going to throw in a Crown of Lucion. So here we get a pretty sizable damage buff. So ideally you have this as a Chaos Armor, for example, here on the glove slot. And then you can also get a bit of cooldown reduction there. Life is actually completely irrelevant, so we don't really care about that on any piece. We don't roll any life, it just happens to be on some of those uniques, because Mana Shield reduces it all to just 1% anyway. So we just go for a cooldown here. And same with Shroud, for example, we just go all in on the all stats and we don't really care about the life. And same here with the Harlequin, you just care about the cooldown, you don't really care about the other stats very much. So you just kind of avoid the life rolls, make sure you have your armor and resistances kept, and then try to get int so they get more mana and more damage. The most important chaos item that we are looking for is the Ophidian Iris. So this is usually this amulet that I also highlighted at the start. This is like the Hydra item. And ideally, we don't have this in the amulet slot. We have it somewhere here on the pants, for example. It can also be here, or before mythics, you can also have it on the helm or whatever. And then we get an extra amulet. So that is pretty huge because, well, speaking of int, we can get a big roll there. So this is both offense and defense. And then we also have a room for more passives. We have room for more tempers. We can go double evade cooldown temper, making it very easy to achieve this one cast teleport cycle. So here we actually kind of like overkilling it on cooldown. Even if you don't have like the GA Shaco, for example, this is totally fine. Even not even crazy masterwork, 1.5. You can probably even get away completely without the Shaco actually. I think 1.7 seconds is exactly the value that you're looking for in order to have this 1-1 cycle, because you get minus 1.5 plus, yeah, there's like a little bit of like casting time and so on. So you can actually get away completely without this. if you just like masterwork up your evade cooldown a little bit, for example, and you're gonna be very safe. To help with the cooldowns a little bit, we also have the Orange Herald aspect here, since we need a normal pair of boots anyways for the attack evade cooldown reduction. We just run that, and this also makes sure that we always have unstable currents up. This has a 10 seconds duration, 40 seconds cooldown in the setup here, so you just need 2 procs throughout those 10 seconds, and you're gonna reset that. It's also pretty easy to achieve like permanent inferno. So here right now, if I just like put this in there, it's gonna have something like 8-9 seconds base cooldown, and then you can cast it with 2 procs like every 4 seconds or something like that, and keep up this 50% damage buff pretty easily. There's also cooldown here on the Tarasha's ring, so this also helps out if you get a GA on this and try to masterwork it up. But again, if you get a Shaco, even with like not a GA, you're gonna have so much cooldown for everything that it's gonna be pretty comfy already. Now let's talk about the Hydra itself a little bit more. So we want to go the Invoked Hydra here. This is a Crit Hydra build, not a Burn Hydra build. So compared to Season 9, some people were especially pushing very high pits with the Burn version, but that is kind of gone because that was mostly based on stacking up this like gem that gave you like a ramping damage buff for dots. That was really useful when you fought the pit boss for 5 minutes. But outside of that, crit is kind of the way, it seems. So we also get a lot of crit chance just kind of built in. So this has a 20% crit chance here. We have Azo's Ferocity, that is 40% crit chance. That is also pretty much up all the time. That's 60. And then Searing Heat, another 15. So we have 85% total extra crit chance for our Pyromancy skill, or for our Hydra in particular. And this means just by existing, you are crit capped. So this is kind of wild here. Even in like the earlier game version, they have base and just what you get from their stats basically. Maybe very early on, you would do like 1 crit roll on your ring and you're gonna have 100%. So that is very easy to achieve. And this allows us to then get synergy with the Flash Fire aspect here. So this is extra crit damage for Pyromancy skills, double against healthy targets. So especially when you're like farming and like one-shot content, you're gonna have an insane benefit here from the Flash Fire aspect. And the other one here is vulnerable synergy. So we don't have Ice Blades on our bar, but we get a big vulnerable damage buff. So this is why this aspect is included. And in the early game, we also have one more aspect here. So battle casters, especially before you get stuff like Stardust Ring, for example, or the Shaco, you won't have that many skill ranks on your Hydra. You don't really get that many besides just like core skills, which is kind of how to get on the glove. And then you have plus 10 here. So this is a pretty sizable upgrade early on. I also have the Hydra Enchant here. So compared to Season 9, this one has actually gained a little bit in value because previously this didn't benefit from the Serpentine aspect. So only your self-casted Hydras were consuming your mana and then getting this big buff from this aspect. But we don't have that anymore. So everything that we use also applies to the Hydra Enchantment now. And they're going to be much better in comparison than they used to be. I was running this last season already, and they were doing something like in the range of around 10% or so of the damage of the casted Hydras. So it wasn't really great. But now with the Serpentine out, it still loses a bunch of multipliers. For example, I believe you don't get, for example, the Enhanced Hydra here. So they're only going to be like a little bit weaker without the 50% damage buff. But yeah, some small stuff like this is missing, but it's a pretty good upgrade. And with the amount of ball lightnings that we cast, we're gonna spam these Hydra enchantments already everywhere anyway. There's also the option to go familiar. So this just gives you these little guys here that can give you a 10% damage buff. So you have to invest those 3 points, go familiar, and then you have kind of like a similar benefit. But I believe in Hydra Enchantment here. And we save 3 points, so I like that. Let's talk a little bit about the Paragons. So this is my setup here. We have Ceaseless Conduit, Searing Heat, Enchantment Master, and Elemental Summoner. So basically 2 boards are kind of locked in for this. And then there's a few others that you can kind of mix and match a little bit. So Enchantment Master is important because of the teleport enchant. We want to make sure that we get a shorter cooldown. Maybe in the very late game, if you try a little bit, then you can get to the point where you don't need it, but it's just a nice board anyway. There's also relatively good rareness with damage reduction, life, non-fizz damage, and so on. It's just kind of nice. And Searing Heat is like the fire damage board, especially for crit builds, so you want to have that. And also stack up your crit damage bonus, which we do easily to get this maximum bonus here. Ceaseless Conduit, since we are running with Ball Lightning and Crackle, you just get like a pretty easy 60% damage buff here basically all the time. And then Elemental Summoner. So here also we get a 60% damage bonus for our summons. And yeah, we also have like these conjuration nodes here, life nodes, and so on. But you could also run some other boards. So depending on if you want to play other builds or if you want to like tweak a little bit, Frigid Fate is pretty decent. Fundamental Release is pretty good. And even Icefall could be considered as long as you freeze regularly. So there could be like a world where you have like something like Frost Nova Enchant, or just like trigger Frost Novas a lot more than we currently do. We do have that, for example, with Neo and Full here, but you would have to probably go a little bit more in on the freezing stuff, and then this could be also an option. And also for the glyphs here, so we have Destruction. This is a very powerful glyph. You want to try to max this out relatively early. Lots of crit damage there. We have Invocation. This is for Conjuration. Also gives damage reduction effect to enemies, so this makes you very tanky. Lots of additive damage on this one. I like Unleash because it gives you lots of mana regeneration with an okay damage bonus. So this is just very comfy with like the regeneration, the faster mana recovery when you get hit and so on. But you can go for a more offensive glyph here. Tactician is also like a really nice buff, just with like rare buffing nodes, 15% damage after using a defensive skill, which is, for example, Teleport that we use all the time. And we have the Pyromaniac here. This is a very powerful one as well. And that also pretty much sums it up for the Hydra guide. So hope you enjoyed this. I do have a lot more builds here as well that I just want to highlight really quick. This is my Builds channel. I've been cooking a little bit over the last few days. Didn't really get everything done that I wanted to, but more stuff is coming as the season progresses anyway. So I'm going to be working on a bunch of builds as I play them, but I kind of like put them all here. And as I mentioned, the Maxwell guide, both for like Hydra and for everything else you could imagine. We have a lot of builds here, so you can go check those out. Here's our endgame tier list, for example, with Hydra Sorc at the very top, for example. So there's more stuff here on the Sorc that is also looking really good, that I definitely want to try. And we'll see how this will go. But for now, this is what I got here. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe for more, and good luck in Season 10. See you guys next time.